Hey everybody! I got my suit back! Yay! 20 bucks shipping and handling. But hey, it's better than 300 bucks on a new suit. But anyways, how was your week? So I guess for this week's topic, Bakari Rue recently did a video on public fursuiting. And I think this is a good leeway, and I'll put a link up on the cards above. And I think that's a good leeway into sort of a story I had at this latest Anthrocon that kind of highlights what I really appreciate in the videos. The first thing she mentioned is like, what do you need when you're public fursuiting? You need a handler. When you're doing public fursuiting, a handler is mandatory. It is not something that you want to mess around with. It's not something that you want to phase around with. Now, I'll give myself a little bit of my background. As my experiences in public fursuiting have always been around furry conventions, particularly around larger furry conventions. The first time I debuted a fursuit, I believe, was Furthermore 2014. This is where this fursuit debuted. And that convention was like 700. That was like in the high. It was around the 800s, I believe. It was a pretty large convention. The first Furthermore, which I had attended, was like 700 and some odd people, which is ironic because it's the same. It was the same size as Biggest Little FurCon that year, and like one of them really took off. But both of them were really large conventions for their first year. So there was that. So the interesting thing to me is that I've never experienced smaller cliques and groups. Now, if you're in a smaller clique and a group, and to me, obviously, to most furries, having a handler in the back of your head is kind of common sense. If you are, if you're the one fursuiter walking around the street or the two fursuiters walking around the street, you go, okay, yeah, I need to have somebody watching my back in case one of these random human beings decides to act a real big fool. And that is important to have. At a larger furry cons, we get, at least in my experience, and might be my issue, it could be other people, so I gotta say it out loud, is that I have a bad habit of doing it sans handler. Especially larger furry conventions that I know the layout for pretty handily. Like Anthrocon, I can walk around pretty comfortably. Midwest Fur Fest, I can walk around pretty comfortably. I kind of know where things are. Except for that one time at Midwest Fur Fest where, that one where I went to the dance workshop, my first time in the actual convention center, where I bonked my nose on the door. The door frame and for one of the little foyers for the main hallway at the Rosemont Convention Center. Yeah, so if you're walking in new areas, obviously having a handler helps you, get a layout of the land, or you can walk around it non-fursuit first and understand where everything is, and then walk later in the fursuit. But having a handler is the better bet because they're going to say, "Whoa, don't walk there. You're going to hit the door. You're going to hit the door frame and bonk your nose," which luckily this thing acts as padding. But the reason that it's important to have a handler when dealing in public fursuiting, even if it is a well-known area to you, I will get into at the end of this video. First, I want to talk about my positive experiences with fursuiting because I think that talking about just the bad is not going to highlight. I'm going to highlight that the last story I'm going to cover is an exception to the rule in my mind. Like from my experiences. While walking around in fursuit at this particular convention, I'll just keep it within the context of Anthrocon 2017 to make things a little faster. So first off, I'd like to note that I ran into two individuals who noted that they watched my channel and listened to my content, and I want to give a quick shout out to those two individuals, which is kind of cool to meet. And seeing as I have less than 200 subscribers, meeting two people who watch your content or listen to your content is pretty significant and it's pretty cool. Like that's more than 1% of the fans that I have, and that's pretty freaking cool. So I'm going to give a shout out to them too real quick. One I met on Thursday night. It was around the Skybridge area of the convention center. And it was an individual who, that was their first furry convention, they told me. And they told me the story about how they took extra time at work and actually did, they were a trucker. And they, which is kind of cool in and of itself. And they said, well, I listened to your videos on the road. And I'm like, oh, man, that's pretty freaking cool. And if you're listening, keep trucking and stay safe out there. He said he took some sort of dangerous substances thing, sort of kind of a thing. Like he was actually trucking radioactive materials and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, wow. Like getting the hazard pay so that he can get to his first convention. And that was kind of cool. So apparently his character, I don't remember his name, but I remember that he had some sort of persona that he wanted to be, which was like a Dutch angel dragon, which of course he doesn't have it yet, at least not that I know of. Like he said he wanted to talk with Telephone about it, because a Dutch angel dragon is a closed species, which are very rare in the fandom. Actually, Dutch angel dragon is the only closed species I'm aware of, which is like basically where a furry invented the species design, and then they said, well, if you want to use this species design, you need to contact me first before you take it. The furry fandom has a few species that are sort of custom made. Cruxes are one, Crux. Serigals are another, Sergals, I believe. And Dutch angel dragons are, I think, another one, and that's telephones. So Telephone basically said, if you want to make one persona of a Dutch angel dragon, you need to talk with me first. You can't just make it and then make it your own, because I don't want people, I kind of don't understand it fully myself. But I always joke around that when I look at what Serigals, like what kind of people have taken on the species of a Serigal and the kind of attitudes they have about life, for a good deal of them make me go, yeah, maybe they have a point. And I said that joke to him, because there's a lot of Serigals and a lot of like every time I see like a post of like somebody saying something dumb, or someone being very weird, like it seems to be a Serigal tied to it. I don't know, maybe that's just a stigma. I shouldn't be doing that. That's a bad thing to do. I gotta punch myself in the face. But to the point is, like Dutch angel dragons are a closed species. I don't know if the guy got his wish to do so, but I hope he did, and I hope he has a safe, keep safe out there on the road, and keep on listening. Thank you very much for talking with me during that first night. Another person who I didn't have much time to talk to, we met at the furry psychology panel that was being run by the IARP group, the International Anthropomorphic Research Project. It's run by a group of Waterloo University, I believe, scientists who are sort of studying fandom sociology, particularly sort of centering around the furry fandom, though the thing that they present to the Canadian government is that they sort of branch out into all sort of fandom cliques sort of things, like so fantasy football even, and anime and stuff like that. Furries just happen to be a part of that, and sort of the furries are kind of the one they sort of center around a lot. And so while I was standing aside, and because I have a big old tail, and when I'm actually at the furry cons, I have a big old tail, and sitting down in chairs in a tail is tough. So I was standing sort of against the rail on the side there and watching the thing from the side, and then like one of these scientists individuals in the lab coat had this like big blue fursuit on the bottom half, walks down and says, I watch your channel, I really enjoy your content, I just wanted to say that I really appreciate it. And I was like, well, thank you very much. But we didn't have much time to talk much other than that, because there was a panel going on up front, and they didn't want to be too disturbed. But I've done talks with Nuka, and like Blairow will every once in a while put up his results for his survey results talking about the sociology of the fandom. So, having I think that those individuals there are somewhat well aware of who I am. So it was kind of cool to talk with her and find out. I guess the story behind her, from what I learned later on from other individuals, was what they said was, well, she's not really even a furry, even though she kind of wears that fursuit. Apparently, she won that fursuit in a charity auction, and so she kind of just wears it to conventions as sort of a mascot for their little group, to help sort of relieve tensions between the super serious scientists and the and the furries who want to enjoy the con, and helping get surveys out there, which is a very cool thing. So those two fans I wanted to give a quick shout out, and those are positive interactions. I got to hug one kid, which was a positive interaction. Walking around the dealer's den, and then one of the mothers is there with their kid, and she's like, look over there, there's one, and she's like hiding behind her leg, like a little bit at first, and that's why I turn around and I'm like, what? It's all right. But I didn't push. I'm just like, if you want to, you want to. And then so eventually she comes out from behind the lady's leg, and she walks up, and and I kneel down a little bit, and we have a nice hug, and that was awesome. And it's like, I hope you enjoy your convention, and they went on their way. It was kind of cool. Another interaction that was positive. I got to, let's see, one of the most interesting ones that was positive of the night, and this one's very funny. So I'm walking to the Headless Lounge in the David Lawrence Convention Center, which is found near the elevators near the ballroom up front. And as I'm walking toward the Headless Lounge, I'm not that hot, but I'm just gonna take a little break because I have some time between things. So I have a guy walk up to my side and sort of tap my shoulder. I turn around, and there's a security guard there, a security guard for the David Lawrence Convention Center itself, in a uniform and sort of a badge. And it's like, "Excuse me, sir," and I'm like, "Oh, what's going on?" I know who the person is by looking at their uniform, so I'm like, did I drop something, I hope, or I didn't do anything wrong, did I? No, I don't do much wrong, so I wasn't too worried. But so I'm like, yeah, it's like anything you needed, and then she's like, this lady here would like to know if she could have her picture taken with you. So standing next to the security guard is this nice sort of mid-30s probably lady who's sort of in this business management sort of motif. She said, yeah, we kind of coordinate. I wanted to get a picture with you, and so she must have been some sort of she let out that she kind of worked for the convention center itself, the David Lawrence Convention Center, and I don't know what position she was in, but he's like, yeah, sure. So we took a picture with each other, and she's like, man, your suit is so awesome, and we coordinate so well. It's like, you want to go to the dance later? I want to take you to the dance later. And I'm like, yeah, great, that'd be great. Of course, I'm thinking that she was more flirty and jokey, flirty sort of thing, because we didn't exchange digits or anything. I'm just saying. But I don't dance. I got 2 left feet. Literally, my left foot is literally the size of 2 left feet. So. Yeah. Don't know if I could dance too well in this thing, but it was kind of funny. It was kind of cute. It was hilarious. But yeah, that happened, and then I tweeted about it yeah, I just got hit on by one of the David Lawrence Convention staff. Yeah, I still got it. Lady killer. Not literally, metaphorically. But anyways, so that was interesting. So after all that, there was a lot of positive interactions throughout the weekend, or just plain normal interactions. Nothing too crazy, but we need to go back onto the topic about fursuit safety and why having a handler is important when suiting around in general public, even at a large convention. particularly if you're going outside of the main convention space. The thing you need to be careful about is the general public is a variable. You don't know how they're going to react. You don't know how they're going to act around people in costumes and stuff like that. So, Saturday night, around 5:15 p.m., I made my way down across the street from the Westin to what is called Fernando's, which is a small sub shop in the area. It's very much a furry staple eatery of the area, who made a name for themselves for sticking up for a furry back in the mid 2000s, when like one of the patrons was acting a fool and getting angry at the fursuiters and the furries in the area, and one of their other patrons. And the owner of Fernando's said, went to the hostile person and said, "You're gonna have to leave." And so that individual, walked out, but they came back later with a brick and hit the manager of Fernando's in the face, the person who had told them to leave. And so since that point, when the manager had been assaulted, I think it was Fernando himself, basically the furries sent him get well cards and all that stuff, and later on when their business was struggling, the furries got together $20,000 in order to try and maintain the business during those hard times. I believe the original manager of Fernando's later moved on, because of that act, later moved on and moved to Brazil. But I think the story is that he became some sort of he joined some religious thing there. He went into sort of being a thing, and it was inspired by the behavior of furries in that moment of adversity. So that story aside, so I'm waiting outside of Fernando's. I'm standing there. I'm waiting for other Roos to show up, because what I'm waiting for is that there was going to be a Roo gathering there at 5:30, and I got there a little casually early, as I sometimes do. So I'm standing. Fernando's inside is pretty busy at this point, so I'm standing outside the building, sort of leaning against the wall a little bit, waiting for people to show up. And people would walk by every once in a while and interact, say hi, hey, how's it going? And you wave back and everything. And then when the crowd sort of dies down a little bit, you see that there's this one gentleman, or I shouldn't say the word gentleman, for reasons I will be getting into. So the one person is standing at the other side of the edge of the sidewalk. So I'm standing closest to the building with my back to the building, which, by the way, is a good decision in and of itself, because if you're waiting for somebody and you don't have a handler, having a big perspective of the thing around you is a good idea. Having your back to a wall and seeing forward in front of you is a good idea, or a good position to be in, because you'll be able to see what's going on around you. Obviously, that's not always the case. So if you're going public fursuiting, you need to have a handler who can watch your literal back while you're doing things. So in hindsight, it was a good position for me to choose to stand against the wall so that I could see things in front of me. So this gentleman here, I said it again. I'm casual to, or I'm professional to a fault, I suppose. But he was standing in front of the car, so his back is to the car. He's facing the building. He's facing me. He's just staring dead on. And he stopped. He's not moving. He's not going anywhere. He's with nobody. He's by himself. And so, he's just, looking. And so I go to the guy, after, a minute or so, it's maybe he'll move on. Maybe he's just curious and he'll just move on. But then he just stood there for that. And I didn't see any badges. I didn't see anything that indicated he was a furry or that he's with the convention or anything. So I go to him. It's hi, how's it going out? How's it going? And then there's an awkward silence for about 30 seconds. And people are, walking by every once in a while, but not really stopping or doing anything. It's just the guy, staring. And so, after a little bit more of a pause, I go, can I help you with anything, sir? And, sort of dead silence for another awkward 30 seconds. It feels really long. It was probably just less than probably a few minutes, the whole interaction. But it's it goes a lot slower because time starts to slow down as you realize, as you start to get like that little thing in the back of your neck going, not feeling comfortable. So, maybe I'm thinking it's like, okay, maybe he's trying to get a ruse out of me, get a ruse out of me. So I'm just gonna like jokey joke about it a little bit. So the next response I give is like, if you're trying to win staring contests with these things, it doesn't work. These things don't blink. And there was another awkward 30 seconds of silence. Doesn't say a thing. And then he takes a step forward and steps forward and moves about halfway distance between me and the sidewalk. So he's about halfway in at that point. Still staring forward, still not saying a gosh dang word. So at this point, that story I just told you about is in the back of my mind, going, this is not a good situation. I don't know who this gentleman is. Once again, saying things nicely to a fault. I don't know who this individual is. I don't know what their intent is. I don't know what is going on in their mind. But the way they're behaving is not comfortable in any regard, even for a furry standard. And that's kind of a tongue-in-cheek thing of me to say, but even for a furry standard, it's kind of like, I'm not feeling this interaction right now. So there's a few things that go through your mind at that point. So what is the modes that you do to get out of this? Well, so obviously the easiest solution for me, since I did not have a handler, which was my fault, is to move from to start moving and remove yourself from the situation. So obviously in my lucky case, well, sort of lucky, but sort of that was sort of my plan, is that Fernando's is right behind me. There's plenty of people inside. This is the reason I stood outside in the first place, is because it was a little crowded in there. So to me, it's like, and I'm only like a few feet from the door, like literally within arm's reach. I mean, the door's right here. So obviously the obvious thing to do is go. It doesn't matter what crowd it is. I don't care if people have arrived yet. I've got to get inside. So I basically go to the sir. I say at that point, so, well, I've got to go, sir. Thank you. I have to go, sir. Have a good day and all that. So then I go in through the door. Luckily, at that point, nothing else happened. The guy probably moved on. I don't know. I didn't look back. But to those people who I was at dinner with that evening, if I seemed a little distant, I usually am a little distant, but I was a little more distant than usual because of that weird and creepy interaction with that person. So obviously, if I had a handler with me, that would have handled it. There's also but in all else, that is kind of the right decisions that I made in the hindsight, is that you remove yourself from the situation in which you're isolated with an individual who is, creeping you out a bit. So, as I said, but you think of bad things like it could have gone worse. The guy could have had a knife. These things are not things we like to think about. Is that there could be people who do harm for whatever random reason. I don't know if it was because of the suit or because of the suit. Because maybe the guy got fired recently or something, and he doesn't like people with fancy dancy suits, or maybe he was going to mug me for my suit. He's like, I want a suit. I want your suit. Can I have your suit, man? Sure. It's like, can I have your sports jacket? I'm going to take it from you. Because this thing has value, right? Like, it's a sports jacket. We were relatively about the same body size, so I mean, maybe that's what he wanted. Like, if he wants a sports jacket, I'll just give him a sports jacket. You want money for a sports jacket? Sure, whatever. But or because it's like it says in the area of a furry convention. I don't know, like maybe because I was the one that was like standing there, and that's another thing to think about. It's like, was it because I was standing there and not really moving anywhere that it triggered him to engage me in that sort of manner, as opposed to the other furries who are walking around moving, seem like they have places to be, and he can just walk by and not get triggered or whatever psychological state he was in. you can go all day thinking about reasons why things happen or what they happen or what it was. But at the end of the day, everyone's fine. Everything happened fine. But it's an important story to share in essence because you need to remember you might feel a little more ballsy in these things. You might feel a little more, I guess that wasn't a proper term to use, but you might feel a little more, charismatic, outgoing and stuff like that in these things. But you need to realize that you're still inside the suit, a flesh and blood human being who can get hurt from, negative interactions. And so you need to have plans when going out into public on ways to mitigate those possible ways. Now, hanging out in places that are more public than private, hanging out with more people, getting yourself into more, crowded situations can work out for you. Obviously, they have to be friendly, crowded situations. But it's as the Precari videos points out, having a handler is important when public fursuiting, even if it's in a place where you think that everyone, like the people love the furries overall, because there's always going to be one or two within that group that are going to be like, no, and I'm going to harass or be creepy, scary people just because I'm insecure in whatever I'm doing in my life. And it's unfortunate that people have to be that way, but that is what it is. So I guess that pretty much wraps this video up. So be sure to kick that like, kick the subscribes, kick the dislike if it creeped you out a little too much, I guess. And also leave a comment in the comment section. Are you a fursuiter? Have you had any negative interactions? Or even if you're not a fursuiter but you outwardly sort of displayed your furriness, have you ever had sort of negative social interactions? How did you resolve those situations? What do you think could have been done to prevent those situations? Sort of advice like that would be great to have in the comment section below. But this has been Tantra McNally. I'm going to get the hop out of here. And once again, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again.